her and I had the same minute amount of equity, while the other two male co-founders had double digits.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I was livid.
What did you do? Did you storm in the office? Did you call your co-founders? Did you plan a coup? What did you do?
I cried.
Okay. Welcome to She's Interesting, a podcast about business, money, and well-being for women over 30. I'm your host, Rashel Hariri. I'm an award-winning marketer, consultant, and a startup advisor. Today, I am so excited to have Eva Chan on the podcast.
Woohoo!
Welcome,
Thanks for
Eva.
having me.
I'm so excited to have you here, you guys. I am in LA. And Eva lives in LA, but she also happens to be a Canadian. I kind of feel like that's the theme while I'm in LA. I keep meeting up with all the Canadians and I love it. Let me give you a brief intro on, well, not brief, because I'm going to go into the details. So Eva is an award-winning founder with 2 exits under her belt. She's also an angel investor. She's an entrepreneur with experience building companies from zero to exit. Okay, we're not messing around. Her experience is in brand strategy, systems building, talent, and growth. She creates methodologies that bridge research, design, and marketing. Over the course of 10 years, she's helped founders launch and achieve product market fit and close funding. Super important because we've seen a lot of what's the ups and downs of what's been happening in the VC world right now. So we're going to dig into that with Eva. Before she started Launch Pop with her co-founder, she was the co-founder of Exact Media, an in-home sampling platform helping CPG companies like P&G and Unilever target shoppers in their homes through online parcels such as Gilt.com, Rue La La, and many more. The company grew from a core team of 4 members to 50 in as little as 6 months, and they expanded to 3 different offices in different cities. They also raised a round in their second year to enable global expansion, and Eva focused her time on developing technology to scale that company. Eva has launched hundreds of companies in the past 7 years, developing a framework that is now shared with founders so that they can launch their companies with a strategy that includes design, marketing, community, and finance, 4 super important components. She's also the recipient of the EY Entrepreneur of the Year finalist in the Young and Emerging category, and she was named a Forbes 2017 30 Under 30 for marketing. Eva, you are so incredible. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you.
Right? We don't mess around. Every guest on this show, my goal is to pump them up so much and read their bio in such a way that they're like, holy shit.
Who am I?
Who am I? You are that girl. Okay, so let's start from the beginning of your journey. Can you share your experience? Because you have a design background of how you transitioned from being a designer to an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I went to OCAD University back in Canada, and I literally woke up one day at 9 a.m. after 12 hours of painting. And I went to class with eyes bloodshot. And I decided that I can't do this for life.
This is not for me.
I can't make a living doing this. And, my health cannot do that. And so I actually, from being a designer, I snuck into a campus next door. And for all the Canadians, this is Ryerson. I don't know what it's called now.
TMU? Yeah, I'm a Ryerson grad.
Okay, so I snuck into the classes and I discovered, wow, this is accounting. There's so much more to this world. This is finance. Wow. And then I even bumped into engineer students and they're doing fun things that I was really inspired by. Monthly workshops to invite engineers to learn about fundraising. Workshops to learn about how to build your team so that you can build a company one day. I was so attracted to that. I just wanted to be part of it. And so when I was a designer, I was like, hey, please, can I be part of this crew and do all the posters, the website? And eventually I spent most of my time at Ryerson and UT at Hart House. And it became part of these organizations that was starting to talk about startups and entrepreneurship. This is 2011 when the word was just buzzing. And I got my foot into the door of this startup world where you build a company, you collaborate with different folks, and you grind. And back then it was hustle culture.
Yeah.
It's that.
It's still hustle culture now,
but
it was a
different
different kind. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I found my people.
Hmm.
And so as a designer, I got really, really involved in that community, the startup community. And very quickly, founders were like, I need to hire a designer. Hey, do you guys know a designer? And I
Hmm.
was the only designer that people knew. And so I was like, yes, please let me, exercise some of the Photoshop skills that I actually learned at home, not even through school, and joined a startup when I was literally in third year of
Hmm.
university.
Was
And
this like an internship or
this was
you were an
this
employee?
is an employee part time. And I decided to do part time school as well. And it took
Hmm.
me 6 years to finish school. But
Wow.
I also got my foot in the door into the startup world and got so invested, made $700 a month. But I said yes to everything and I
Hmm.
made sure everything I touched supposedly turned into gold. That was my
Well,
goal.
clearly it did because you have two exits.
And it was so powerful with that type of energy.
Hmm.
I got my first job as a designer at a beauty subscription box company, and it was called Luxbox at the time, similar to Glossybox in the States. And when I walked into the door, this is pre Shopify, by the way.
Yeah.
Literally 8 male developers were in the room, and the co-founders were 2 engineers, male engineers,
And their target market was women.
women who are
Oh,
receiving these beauty boxes filled with like Lancome and Estee Lauder, and they're getting, pressed with like Flair.com. It's like so feminine.
yeah.
And it was interesting. I joined as a designer, but very quickly they needed my help to figure out product,
Hmm.
figure out how do you pair this, sample in the box with this sample brand? How do we talk to our customers?
Yeah.
How are we going to make them feel special? And that translated into market strategies. It translated to what are we going to do when we're all sitting in the boardroom and these are the numbers,
Hmm.
right? And so I got invited to the boardrooms,
Oh,
the
good.
the quarterly meetings really quickly. And
And were you the only woman on the team at the time?
we soon did hire more.
Okay.
I also, was just a designer and very quickly had to voice my opinions
Hmm.
so that the company can move in the right direction. So I was a designer and then very quickly turned into so many different roles for
Yeah. Did you transition easily into like a marketing role? Because it seems like you're based on your consumer insights and knowledge of obviously being a woman yourself of what women would want. Is that what you ended up going into, or you still stayed in the design realm?
I still stayed in a design realm, but I began to build methodologies to help non designers, business leaders understand how we can rationalize design and stop saying, I think, I feel, but what are some of the frameworks we can create by looking at the data that we have from sales, data from marketing, and turn that into very tangible creatives that drive results.
Hmm.
And so a lot of those strategies now I take into Launchpop and share with these founders.
After you were in that role and you got a taste of the startup world, did you move to Exact Media after, or how did that happen for you?
So we were just still the same core team.
Okay.
Luxbox grew like rapidly. It was amazing. We are a subscription business, and your cash flow is amazing when you have a subscription business. You keep going, you survive, you pay your dues, but you still have cash coming in every month, and so you keep going.
Hmm.
But it doesn't mean that the growth is healthy. It
Right.
it, it wasn't healthy. And so very quickly as a team, we had to figure out how can we pivot as a company as a whole. And the core team of us sat down every quarter thinking, how can we make things work?
Hmm.
And I still remember, we had this long weekend in a boardroom away from the team, and we had to think, okay, what's a business where we can continue doing the things that are really good at doing, and then let's X out the things we're not
Yeah.
good at doing, which is, shipping, talking to customers, the whole end to end piece we're not good at. But what we're really good at is building relationships with P&G, L'Oreal, all those brands, and also building relationships with the e-com partners. And
Mhm.
so this idea sparked be a broker of sampling programs because P&G, L'Oreal, they have so many samples that they distribute every single year, and they do it on the streets. They don't measure it. They do it at events. They don't measure it. And millions of dollars towards this program not measured.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we said, hey, what if they didn't hand it out on the streets? Instead, we placed them in outgoing e-commerce parcels through Roulala, Guild.com, and then served surveys through these e-com partners to see, are they trying the samples? After trying it, are you purchasing the full-size product? And how was your experience with this
Mhm.
brand after?
Get some of that feedback.
That's a lot of data that a brand manager can use, which they couldn't otherwise before.
What happens is, or what used to happen back in the day, is it would be like this black box. You would give out the samples, you would do in-store sampling, and you would get people to try the product. And sometimes you get qualitative feedback right there. And the reason why I know this is because I used to, when I was in
Yeah.
university, I was one of those like sample girls
Wow.
that would be, with like Nespresso and being like, here, try the Nespresso, and trying to sell them the actual
Yes.
coffee machines when it first launched. But there was a bit of a dark hole because things would go in and then you wouldn't actually know, like corporations wouldn't actually know, are these samples what consumers want? Is it working? Is that what's actually driving people back to do the sales? And you guys solved a really big gap in the market at the time. Did you know when you were first, spitballing these ideas, did you have a feeling that this was going to be really big? Or were you guys just like, we're in a desperate situation, we need to pivot fast?
Mhm. Yeah, it's always like, oh wow, you launched a product and it's so simple and it exploded. How did you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I always believe that things happen for a reason. With Luxbox, we actually built relationships with brand managers already for so many years and built a lot of trust where we're having conversations about what do you need in your line of business to succeed? And we were already in the sampling world with these
Mm-hmm.
brand managers, and it's just understanding how can we further solve their problems. And Exact Media, we had a hunch that it could be a very big opportunity, but we didn't understand how big it was.
Yeah. So how, when you guys first launched this idea for Exact Media, things were going really well as far as you know, right? Because so background for the audience is some shady business happened at Exact Media. So
Let's get that out there first.
yeah, let's get something straight. We're about to get into a really juicy part of Eva's story. So you were at Exact Media. You were part of the core founding team. There was 4 of you. You were building this thing really quickly. You guys were making good amounts of money. You were growing fast. Everything seemed positive on paper. And then things took a turn. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, Luxbox was doing very well cash flow wise, but we had to figure out how to get out of our debt.
Mm-hmm.
And we had over 6 figures of debt at that time, and each of us had equity in the company. And so we had to really pivot to get ourselves out of debt, and make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot on the line. Like all our heart and soul and energy was on the line to make sure we can get out of debt because this debt was personal. It was one of the co-founders'
Mm.
debt
It was under that person's
under
name.
that person's
Okay.
name, and so we wanted to help make sure that could happen. And when we started Exact Media, we just didn't understand how quickly it could grow. It was explosive. We went from survival mode to getting the debt back, recuperating that debt really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
to growing, exploding so quickly that we had to hire fast. And
Yeah.
we went through so many growth pains, culture shifts from 10 people, 20 to 30. It's just so
Oh, I
many.
can imagine.
right?
Like almost like to a point where it feels uncontrollable, right? Where you're like,
Exactly.
who hired this person?
Exactly. And all within the span of 2 years.
Yeah.
And so we never got to even breathe and sit down and talk about what is the structure here between us four,
And your
um,
equity split.
and our equity split, and um, just understand what does it even mean being a co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we head into building exact media, and I was told that I was a co-founder through all of our press and um, call it what you will, all these cosmetic
Mm-hmm.
things out there. I'm co-founder, but
Yeah.
behind the scenes, uh, behind Forbes 30 under 30, behind EY Entrepreneurship Award, I was dying
Mm.
because
What was
that was not the
happening?
truth,
Okay.
right? Like I was a co-founder, but not really, because if you look at the cap table, there are some folks on the team that will have more equity than me,
Like how much more are we talking?
double.
Okay. And so you basically were told you were a co-founder,
Yes.
and by all means you assumed, yeah, I'm a co-founder. They're saying I'm a co-founder, but it was more in terms of like the paperwork and the behind the scenes
Yes.
documentation. Had you guys had any conversations
No.
about that? Or
No,
was it just
no.
basically what you had agreed on like 4 or 5 years prior? You
Yes.
assumed everyone was equal.
Yeah. The equity that I was given was given when I was working at like Luxbox as a
Yeah.
designer. And that
Okay.
equity was given to me to reward me for my hard work. But when we were, and I have to give this context that we were racing, surviving,
Mhm.
and then suddenly we headed into this hyper growth mode that we did not spend the time to talk about our equity and what the cap table looked like. And I think this is a huge lesson for
Mhm.
a lot of folks out there that hyper growth does not mean you don't stop to talk about these things.
Mhm.
Sometimes you ignore it because there's so much growth. It's so exciting, and you forget that this is very important.
Mhm.
And so I did not talk about this. And as we headed into fundraising, I actually accidentally got access to our Dropbox folder.
How did this happen? So curious.
It's
How did you,
so
but wait, you're a co-founder and you accidentally got access?
exactly. I got access because we were going through due diligence with our
Mm.
fundraising, and we had to create this entire package of our company and our documents.
Yeah,
And I was responsible for the tech piece of our build,
that's right.
of our company build. And this is where we were building the marketplace. And I had to show, okay, what is the plan? Where are we at? What are some of the screens? And I had to upload this onto Dropbox for my piece of this due diligence.
Mhm.
And so one of our junior team members was getting this all together for us, and so I DM'd her and I said, "Hey, I have my piece ready. Can I upload my documents now?" And she said, "Okay, here's a link."
Oh, so that's how it happened.
That's how it happened. And then the following week, the manager of that junior team member followed up with me and said, "Hey, have you done your piece yet? We need to gather all our documents now and send soon." I said, "Yeah, I finished it last week."
Yeah.
And then she said, "How did you do? What do you mean? Like, no one's supposed to have access to this folder?" And really quickly, my flags just went up.
Yeah.
Just like,
Especially as a co-founder, why would you not? Why would there be any
exactly.
reason why you shouldn't have access to these things? It's strange.
Yes, very, very strange. And by the way, she is also a co-founder. And
Oh.
there's four of us. So two women, two men. And my flags, my spidey senses started tingling. And so I actually immediately downloaded the entire folder offline.
Mhm.
And I spent the evening until the morning looking at every single document, going line by line, word by word. And I just wanted to understand what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling this way.
Mm.
And I started, when a guy cheats on you and you have this like FBI in you, like
Yeah.
every single woman does. Oh, my FBI came out
Yeah.
and I started investigating, and I discovered the cap table, and I saw what everyone is getting, what their salary
Even
was.
the other female co-founder?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
And we had the same equity awarded to us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to talk about her, but she's amazing. She is smart. There's 4 of us, and we've equally pulled our weight to build this company, and co-found it and conceptualize this in the
Mm-hmm.
boardroom. And her and I had the same minute amount of equity, while the other 2 male co-founders had double digits.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I was livid.
What did you do? Did you like storm in the office? Did you call your co-founders? Did you plan a coup? Like, what did you do?
I cried.
Okay.
I cried
Honestly,
hard.
I would too. I think I would first cry and then I'd be like, now I'm going to kick some ass.
Yes, there was a fire that was lit under me.
Yeah. And how old were you at this time? Were you
Oh,
still in like your
man.
early 20s, mid 20s?
Time flew, but
Yeah.
I want to say, so I just won Forbes 30/30 at that time, that year. And
Yeah.
so I was probably like 29.
Okay.
Yeah. And
But like you've grown with these people and you
I've
have so
grown
much
a
trust with
lot,
them
many years.
that it's really like such a terrible feeling where you're like, I trusted you guys. The
Yeah.
4 of us, we were a group.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
the struggle, with team members that join early. If you're day 1 team members and you join the company as this, like me, I was this very shy girl, just in college, not even graduated yet. And I come from an art and design background.
Yeah.
And then you transform dramatically over the years into someone that's actually making huge impact in the company. You still have to fight for yourself. At that point, I still need to prove myself that I'm worthy.
Wow.
It is crazy, right? And it's not like, look at my co-founder. She went to EY.
Yeah.
She used to wear Hugo Boss.
Yeah.
She was on path to being partner, and she left that cushy job to join, and she is very qualified. She still had to fight for her equity.
And so the other 2 co-founders that had the double digits, those were male co-founders.
Male co-founders.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so when all of this had happened, you heard the news. Did you at that point decide like what are you supposed to do? And I think this is good advice for anybody who's listening who might actually be going through a similar thing. Are you supposed to sue? Are you supposed to have a meeting with your team? Are you supposed to be like, I'm not talking to anyone. It's only going to be through lawyers. At that point, what's the right thing to do?
Well, I'll tell you what I did.
Okay.
And I don't know the right answer because it's extremely emotional, and you can build layers here.
Yeah.
Right. Initially, I came from a design background. I wasn't extremely educated about what a cap table is, how much should be allocated, how much is reserved for the team, what it meant to have equity in the first place, and advocating for yourself is very hard because imposter syndrome is
Absolutely.
real.
Yeah.
I'm a designer and I've grown into these roles, and I'm forever thankful for that. But at what point, as a woman and someone who has grown so much, do you really advocate for what is yours and what you deserve? There's a lot of inner work here that needs to be done.
For sure.
And so what I did initially was honestly just set up a meeting with the CEO at the time to express what I've discovered. Because they had no idea I discovered this.
Yeah.
They have no idea why am I so upset and not so present at work.
After you had this meeting with the CEO of the company, what did you decide at that point that I know that they tried to keep you and they increased your salary and they did as much as they could, but obviously not giving you what you needed, which was as a co-founder, more equity and more stake and share in the company. So when you decided, and so I'm fast tracking the story a bit, but Eva decided that it was time to step away, which I'm sure was probably a very painful and difficult thing to do. What led you to that point? Because I know that you tried to work with the team. They gave you more money. It was like a little bit of a Band-Aid or hush money, you might even call it.
Yeah.
What happened when you decided to leave? What did you do next? How did you plan your exit?
I had to think through my finances, obviously, and I realized this is not my way going forward. I can't be with the same team. I've learned a lot, and actually going through this was very powerful because it gave me a lot of data points, really rational data points that they don't see my worth. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And I see my worth. And so even though it's extremely painful, I had to decide to just walk away and start creating my own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I've already created a decade of um, connections, founders, network, community,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of folks out there already know me for someone who can build
Yeah.
and build with quality. And so I started spending a lot of my time in my evenings from like 5 to like 9 p.m. catching up with people,
Mm-hmm.
having coffee, just to see what they're up to. What can I get excited about? And where can I go next?
Yeah.
And a lot of like like deep thinking around like what excites me. And I finally had a chance to decompress
Yeah.
from the past 7 years of building.
And
Um,
probably the trauma of what happened to you at
yeah,
work.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I think about that, I also think about how the company was built
Yeah.
and how little control I actually had in wanting to build it the way I would love to. And
Mm-hmm.
so through that, this beautiful thing was born where I wanted to shape the next thing properly.
Yeah.
And I realized I didn't want to talk about the same thing for the next 10 years. I wanted to talk about many people's stories.
Yeah.
I want to help others. That's where I get my energy. Having coffee with founders gave me so much energy just to hear what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And so very naturally, the next step was to just get involved. So one of my mutual friends. He was a product manager at Tesla, and he really wanted to build this like hangover drink company. He
Okay.
just came back from Korea, and he was working and drinking a lot. But everyone in Korea does this. They
Yeah.
go to 7-Eleven and they get this herbal tonic. Tastes like shit,
Yeah.
but they feel great the next day and they keep on going. And so he was like, I gotta launch this in America. Like, doesn't exist here. We just like eat our burger or
Yeah.
hair of the dog.
McDonald's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so 7 years ago, this hangover drink category never existed. Hydration category never existed. How do you build that? I was so excited about this challenge,
Yeah.
especially as a creative, as a builder. That was the very first project that got me excited, gave me I guess, like the courage
Mm-hmm.
to leave the company.
Okay.
And
And that's when you started working on.
I started planting the seeds to leave,
Yeah.
started to work on this company in my evenings.
Yeah.
From
And this wasn't, Launch Pop hadn't come across your
No.
mind yet, right?
No,
This was
no,
just
no.
something that you're working on the side,
Yes.
building this out for your friend. And so at what point, when you left the company and you started working on this product for your friend, when did you and your co-founder Jane meet? Or you guys already had known each other from before, right?
Yeah. Jane and I have a very special relationship. She used to, we had actually scouted her when she was a brand manager
Mhm.
at a big food brand company, and we hired her to be a sales person. And for a whole year, we were just friends. She didn't report to me directly, and
And she used to be at Shopify.
yeah,
Yeah. And I was at Shopify. We weren't there at the same time, but that's how I met Jane.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so when she had left the company and joined Shopify to be the entrepreneur in residence, we continued to be amazing friends. And it's funny, I spent so much time at Shopify. I would sit by her desk and folks would literally run in and have this whole spiel about this product or marketing idea. And then I turn my head, I'm like, I'm not Jane.
Yeah.
Wait till she comes back. But it was beautiful because Jane and I were best friends, and we knew we need to build something together when on Fridays we go to a club and we have no reason to be in the VIP line.
Mhm.
But for some reason, us together, we felt so much more bold, so much
Powerful.
more powerful
Yeah.
that we would just walk towards the VIP line and say, we're VIP too. Two people.
Yes.
And the bouncer would be like, all right, go in, ladies.
Amazing.
Every time.
Yeah.
Doesn't
So
matter.
when you guys started Launch Pop, and I think Launch Pop is really interesting because, so for anybody who's unfamiliar with Launch Pop, it is a venture studio where they work with founders to build e-commerce brands. And so can you explain to the folks that are listening What does a venture studio mean? What exactly do you do? Do you take equity from the founders? How does that work?
Venture studio model is part, offering a service to founders and providing consultation. And usually that's given it in return with like a retainer model. And then on the other side, when you're a venture studio, you offer to take on equity so that founders can afford your services and you make it more approachable.
Yeah. So you reduce the price, basically, reduce the price a bit, take some equity, but also I think it's a great model because you're going to put in more work because now you have equity and stake in this company. So their success is your success. Regardless, whenever you have clients that you're working with, you want them to do well. But this is a different level of being signed on to make sure that
Yes.
they're successful.
Yeah, this is us having skin in the game and taking a risk
Yeah.
for them with them.
So you've
Yeah.
had a couple of like very well-known brands, More Labs, Get Real, Daily Gem, My Topicals, which is a big one. And they've raised everything from, 8 million in a series A to 17.5 million. When your clients are going through this process, are you actually supporting them with building the pitch deck for them and the branding and everything behind the scenes? How does that process work? And I know that we mentioned earlier, there's like 4 areas that you guys focus on, which is like the marketing, the finance, the community, and the growth. Yeah.
It's so funny. Like a lot of agencies specialize in one area. Like, I'm going to be your ads manager. I'm going to help you crush it with your ads, or I'm going to help you with social media and crush community building. But when you're in early stage, you have to be good at everything.
Yeah.
And
you have to make money.
you have to
There's no point in having
P&L.
Yeah, you can't have build a community that's not making any money because your company's going to shut down.
Yeah. Early stage, you have to understand what is the story here that will resonate throughout all the channels, and does that perform? Early stage, you have to really understand how do you position yourself in the market. And a lot of founders nowadays will head into a product idea and say, I want to build it like this. It should say this and it should look like this. But where are you getting this data?
Yeah.
And it's all just from your gut. Of course, sometimes your gut is very powerful because you understand the industry so well. Maybe you are the user. But once you're doing an e-com company and you're trying to build a company for the long term, it's really, really important that you start from a place of data. And so that's why at Launchpad, we created a methodology where you can leverage Meta, put your idea out there, create mock-ups, whatever you want, shoot it out there and really understand who are some of the top audiences that will actually click on a potential idea like this. And once you can understand that, then you can actually prioritize who you speak to. Yeah, cool, you're launching a gut health business. It can help everyone.
Yeah.
But if your gut health business is like this and it's this type of format with who's going to care first? And can you afford that? And if they're clicking, how much does it cost? You have to know the state.
Who are your early adopters who are then gonna, like Malcolm Gladwell, take you to that tipping point where you have your first segment and audience and then it goes mass after that. But to your point, you can't, for example, like a gut health brand, sure, you can help everyone, but not everyone's going to be an early adopter.
Exactly. You have to understand your hierarchy first. And then in testing, you can understand, okay, if that's my top audience, what is it about my brand or product offering that you really care about? Because gut health can solve a lot of things. It could solve your skin, your hormonal stuff, like eczema, it can solve a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And so we need to understand, based on what you solve, what does that number one audience care about? And you have 1 second to capture their attention and interest throughout. You need to know this. And so we'll discover through signal testing, okay, this is my top audience. They care about this. What does my website need to say now? And so what's really powerful about intent data through our signal testing is that now you can create a very strong strategy towards how you build your website. What copy do you write? What's my ad strategy? What does my brand need to say? So that people will continue to care every step of the way.
you're already getting insights very early on that will lead you to have more exact response when you do get to the point of A/B testing and experimenting with landing pages and product display pages and things like that. So I think that's brilliant. How do you get your deal flow? And I'm asking this question because I think there's a lot of people that are also in the agency world or solo consultants or, like servicing different customers, and deal flow is a big part of the business, but also when you're working with early stage, it's a bit tricky to get them in the door. So, what advice do you have? What's working for you guys?
In the first year, we served everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how I talk about a gut health business, it can help everyone. So it does marketing and
Mm-hmm.
design. And so it took a year for me to understand our magic spot. It went from crypto to cannabis to fashion, beauty. And we finally discovered the folks that we love working with are folks who are going to have all their eggs in the basket and want to build something amazing, usually in the better for you kind of category in supplements, food, drinks, beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And once I was able to discover that, then I was able to figure out who I need to reach out to. And so in the very beginnings of Launch Pop, I just hosted a ton of dinners. I didn't know anyone moving to LA.
Yeah.
So what do? You create your own community. You're going to be the hub. And how do we have money to host dinners? Well, Deloitte or the bank or this law office would love to meet founders too, and they have money. And so you get them to sponsor.
Brilliant. I actually love that because recently I had a dinner for She's Interesting where it was all investors and women in M&A. And it was also a sponsored dinner with a really incredible partner. And the reason why we focused on investors and M&A was because the firm that we were working with that was sponsoring the dinner, that's what was important to them. But what we did was bring together this incredible community of women, and you really firsthand experience and you see the deep connections when you have these intimate dinners. So I think that's a really great idea. Yeah, it's a great, you get to go out, you meet people, everybody wins, and that's perfect. And so, okay, right now we're seeing a lot of D2C brands, e-commerce brands that are going belly up. They are closing down, they scaled too fast, they've raised a lot of money, and now they're stuck and they're basically selling their businesses for parts. What is your POV on what you're seeing in the space right now? Because I'm sure it's also affecting your clients as well.
Yeah, I think like the e-commerce world is going through a revolution. It's going through an evolution.
Yeah.
And we're realizing we can't build e-commerce businesses like a tech company and expect growth without profitability. You have to build a company that can see profitability. And so founders and investors are reevaluating how to invest into these companies and how to drive growth. So it's no longer growth at all costs. It can't be that anymore. It has to be very meaningful. And my perspective of e-com world, and especially the products that we touch and care about, it's going to be about driving innovation. Product innovation is going to be so powerful in the future and now, and especially if you're thinking of building a very big company with a huge valuation and you want to raise money, product innovation is really key here.
So as an angel investor, what are you looking for in this current market?
As an angel investor, I see so much deal flow. It's sometimes hard to know what you want to invest in. But for me, it's less about the product idea and it's less about, like a VC who have a thesis and you want to invest in a certain category industry.
Right.
Oh, because this category is trending, this industry is going to shift like this in the next 5-10 years. We need to invest in this. It's not like that for me. For me, because I touch so much early stage and I see so many founders, I can tell when I meet a founder that has the personality and the capability to actually be here for the next decade. Product ideas will change. I guarantee after launch, you'll learn something and you'll have to do like a mini pivot. And that's the life of an early stage founder. It's all about pivoting.
It's like pivot or die.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not huge too. It's like mini pivots. And if you're able to continue doing that as a founder, That's really powerful for early stage and for the long term. And so that's what I'm looking for. As long as I meet a founder like that and it's magical, I want to give you money.
Yeah.
Let me in for the long term.
And I'm so curious about you and throughout the journey that you've had in your career, what is your money mindset? Did you, like many of us, struggle with having a scarcity mindset and are now thinking about abundance? Maybe you always had an abundance mindset and you're one of the lucky ones. But what's your POV on money?
Money is such a journey, especially me growing up with my family who saves every single dollar.
Mm-hmm. Can
My
relate to
mom
that.
is like that. She does not want debt. Pay off your credit card. Debt is so bad for you. That was my learning growing
Mm-hmm.
up. And I was so scared to ask people for money, so scared to go into debt when actually debt is very powerful. If used properly, it can unlock a lot for you. For example, Launch Pop. I was so scared to ask for money and I bootstrapped it in the very beginning until I was stuck where I needed to execute on all the brands that were closing, but also need to do sales. But I didn't have the money just yet to hire folks.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you need at this point when you're in this limbo? You need money. You need an injection. And I actually started off fundraising and then quickly realizing, no, I care about my freedom. That's one of the pillars of why I built LaunchPop.
Mm-hmm.
And so turned down fundraising and actually just asked my brother for 30K. That will give me at least just 2 months
Mm-hmm.
of a head start to test this idea that I need talent now to unlock LaunchPop. And very quickly, second year, month one, I got the 30K injection and the rest is history. Everything's extremely different now.
Mm-hmm.
My mindset's different. Um, I have a team now. I can see the future. And so money mindset for me now is LaunchPop is stability for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks don't know I actually build real estate on the side. I have a whole
Oh,
portfolio.
how many assets do you have?
In Canada, I work with my dad on this. And in our family, we have about 4 properties in Canada.
Amazing.
And then in the US, I have 2 properties now. And
Love that. That is amazing. I'm so glad we uncovered this because I had no idea that was part of your like investment portfolio. So as part of what you do, you have angel investing, you have LaunchPop, you also have this real estate portfolio. Is there anything else that you're doing that we should talk about?
well, there's also, of course, the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really powerful about all that thinking is you have to think short term and long term.
Hmm.
And I have learned that there's a lot of power in compounding interest.
That's right. Yeah.
And there's nothing more powerful than now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't wait. And even if it's to put $100 in every month in an ETF, that's more powerful than you being frozen saying, I don't know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
Yeah. Do something.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for opening up and sharing that with us. I think it's so important for women to talk more about money and our perspectives on money and using money as a tool and being, in my opinion, less attached to money and the outcomes of it and using it as, like think of your money as a business. So how are you going to pay yourself from this business, from your bank account that you have? How are you going to grow the business? And where are you going to put the money that is going to give you the best return and value? And so, I mean, we're going to have more and more conversations like this on She's Interesting because I think in this season, we need to go a little bit deeper on money and have some of the conversations that we as women are missing out on. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, for sharing your experience and being so open with everything that's happened from early stages to the success that you've had, having a 7-figure plus business. Super excited for you guys. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. And as always, to everyone who's listening, if you enjoyed this podcast today, be sure to subscribe, to rate us, to leave us a review, and also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at She's Interesting Podcast. We will catch you in 2 weeks.